Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dafa Discussions. Today we have a wonderful part of all this that Louis and I promised everyone is that we're going to get around the world to interview amazing, wonderful Falun Dafa practitioners. Jessica Nape, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
More than welcome. Now, Louis and I, as you guys know, live literally, globally speaking, down the road from each other. And for me, over the last 21 years or so, I've been to different places around the world, countries around the world, and I've met, oh my gosh, must be a couple of hundred. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is actually a couple of hundred different Dafa practitioners from around the world, all different ethnicities, all different ages. And for me, the one thing that's always been really clear about this practice is it just has the ability to make you into a wonderful person. We all think we're pretty nice from one degree to another, but if there's one thing I know in my practice is that, um, you know, I guess I felt fairly good in life. I felt like I was a fairly good person, but Falun Dafa really opened my eyes as to what it is to cultivate spiritually in a true path and to develop yourself, develop your character, your morals, the kindness in you, the patience in you, all of these incredible virtues to spaces and places that you never even dreamed of, to be honest. And one of the things that Louis and I also have mentioned is that over these 20 or 30 years that Falun Dafa has been out, the Chinese Communist Party, with all of the propaganda to villainize this beautiful practice that Louis and I have showed you and talked about, one of the things they do mention is just how Falun Dafa people are brainwashed in one way or another, or are ignorant, and all kinds of crazy, crazy stuff. So we would like to uh, give you some time with Jessica. I've known Jessica personally, another amazing person. And so to kick it off, Jessica, how how is it that you came to find Falun Dafa? And the other part of the question is, what were the experiences that let you know that this kind of this practice is good, is wonderful, and it's something that you can do?
Yeah, okay. Well, I first found out about the practice because my father um, practices Falun Gong. He still practices now. Um, I grew up in Australia um, and I did my schooling up here in Cairns, and then I moved to London. I was 1 year and I stayed for 10 years. And when I was living in London, my father started practicing Falun Gong. And it's really funny because I would come back to Australia every couple of years. And what I'd actually noticed is, and this is going to sound really weird, but my dad started to look younger, as in, like, he just had this kind of glow about him. And so that's probably the first thing where I thought, whatever this is really good. Like, it's really good for him. He's changed. I knew him all my life, obviously, but like I could just really see something. And it's interesting, when I was living in London, outside the Chinese embassy, they have like a candlelight vigil, a vigil there actually. I don't know if it's candlelight, to be honest. Sorry, it's just there's someone there all the time, 24/7. They take shifts, and there's someone there just kind of outside with a little bit of information. I think like just sort of sending some good thoughts or something. They're out the front, and I used to always, like, meditating. I used to always walk past on my way to work, and I'd think about my dad almost every day, just being like, oh, Falun Gong, like, wow, they're there, they're there, because I didn't know too much
And
about
so
them.
there were Falun Dafa practitioners outside the Chinese consulate. Was it like
Yeah,
a peaceful protest?
yeah, it's incredible. They were there, like, the weather in the UK, in London, yeah, it's like raining a lot, it's freezing cold, it's like, there's someone there, like always at any hour. Like, and
Wow.
yeah, I saw a documentary about it actually a few years back, and didn't know as much about it when I was living there and just walking past, because I wasn't practicing at that point. But yeah, it's a great documentary. I can't quite remember the name of it, but anyway, so my father was practicing. I'd come back to Australia, and when I would visit him, um, every morning he was going and meeting a bunch of other practitioners, and they do the meditation exercises in the park in the morning. An hour standing and an hour sitting meditation, and I would join him. And I remember sort of thinking, like, I don't know what this meditation sort of is like. What's the draw? What's the appeal for people who meditate? Like, I just didn't get it. I was pretty young. I was like, I don't understand it. Like, for myself is what I was thinking. And I was like, I don't even know how you still that monkey mind, because each time I would try, there'd be like a million thoughts, And but anyway, I was visiting my dad, and I was like up for trying, to going along to do whatever he does. And by the end of the week, after doing it every single day, I was sitting in that fifth exercise, of sitting meditation, and I just had like a moment, and it wasn't that long, but it was just like a moment of like just stillness and real, like, it just was like, yeah, like, just that stillness and that peace, And so I was like, this is maybe why this is probably it. This is probably why it took me a week, because it's like, you got to like practice. It's like a meditation practice, to sort of kind of, practice your mind from, jumping everywhere. And yeah, so I was kind of like, oh, that's nice, And my father gave me a copy of Falun, which is the main text of that people who practice Falun Dafa read. And I took it with me back to London. And, I lived in London for 10 years, and I didn't read it until I moved back to Australia 10 years later. So I had this book, and I might have actually opened it up and read, I think I might have read actually 1.5 lectures or something. And I remember sort of at that time going like, wow, this is a bit out there, and I'm not kind of like, don't know if I'm ready for this. And then, but I took it, but I still wanted to read it, and I took it with me every time when I was living in London, and I'd go to Europe, I'd go on holiday in Europe, or I'd go to America for work, or whatever it might be. I would be like, I'm taking this is the book. I'm going to have some downtime. I'm going to read, and, this is the book I would take. And it would come with me to the beach, or it would go with me here, and I just never actually read it. And it wasn't until I would move back to moved back to Melbourne. Well, moved to Melbourne. I'd never lived in Melbourne. And when I was in Australia, it was kind of unusual how it all happened, because I was, like when I was in London, I was working at a photo agent. I was working in advertising. I like, they've still all around the world. I had like the best job. I loved it. But I was like, oh my goodness, if I stay here, I might never end up leaving London. And I don't know if I want to sever my roots in Australia yet. So I'm like, okay, what's a good reason to go to Australia? Like, I kind of thought I'll never find a job like this again, but I feel like I want to develop more, do something, just see if, not lose my ties. I was getting a British accent and everything. And anyway, so I was like, okay, well, filmmaking is kind of interesting to me. And so I applied for this film school in Melbourne, and I got in. And so I moved to Melbourne. And when I moved to Melbourne, I had like, great film course I got into. I found a really great place to live, like really awesome flatmates. I'd just been married, like, and, everything was like kind of going my way, and from a surface level, like, London for me was just like, I was just so happy in London and content. There was so much going on, like what I thought, and, things that were stimulating me, but it was all external when I look back. It was like, there was like, really great music, like gigs and amazing art, and there was always something to learn, and so close to travel everywhere. And these things kind of like, they sort of make you satisfied or happy for a certain amount of time. And then I think when I moved back to Australia, I was like, things are still going great, but for some reason I was feeling like I don't know if depressed is the right word, but I was really feeling like unusual, like, you know, just very sad. And it wasn't really like me. Like, I've generally been a pretty relaxed, happy person. I never in my life was searching for anything like, you know, that I thought like, yeah. And anyway, I was just kind of finding it really difficult, just feeling like, like crying, feeling like, you know, very antisocial. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to solve this. You know, this is what I was like to solve this, like, really heavy feeling, like, physically, like, you know, felt like, I even just felt like there were weights on my shoes or something, very heavy, and, you know, mentally kind of just couldn't work it out. And so, yeah, like I said, I went on to solve it. So I was like, right, that's it. Positive affirmations. I'm going to put, be aware of my thoughts and have the positive thoughts. Okay, I'm going to exercise, and I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to go to bed early. Like, you know, I was doing it all, like, you know, and and I was just like, yeah, it's not shifting. And I remember, like, I was just like, okay, so like, okay, I think I'd stopped drinking alcohol as well, and, you know, I used to party a bit. I was like, yep, all of it. I'm going to be like, you know, stop all of it, just healthy things, and see if that lifts my depression or this feeling. And and then, like, a friend said to me, she's not a practitioner or anything, but I said to her one day, I was like, you know, I'm trying all these things, and, you know, all I really want to do is just lay in bed and just read a book. I just don't even want to leave my house. And she said, well, instead of fighting this depression, like, maybe that's your soul's way of turning in on itself. Like, why don't you just do that if that's what you feel like doing? And my stuff hadn't been shipped from London yet. Well, had been shipped, but hadn't arrived, all my belongings, besides the one book that I always travelled with, thinking one day I'll read. So that was the only book I had, like Joan Falun. So, you know, I didn't have any furniture. I just had a suitcase and that. So I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to lay, you know, don't leave the house or whatever. If I don't, you know, don't try and push myself to get past this. I'm just going to do what I feel. I'm going to read this book and stay in bed, you know. And anyway, I started reading this book. When I started reading this book, Joan Falun, like, it just really resonated with me. It was really, really rational. And it just kind of made a lot of sense. Like, I mean, on the first read, there are probably things that I'm just like, I'm not sure, but, you know, I really just want to read further to kind of really understand it properly. And I remember phoning my dad up, who practices Falun Gong, and gave me the book. And I said, you never told me how good this book is. Like, you really didn't, like, it's amazing. And I said,
it was your fault, Dad. It was your fault.
no, why did you ever tell me? Like, this book is really, like, kind of just really amazing. And he was just like, this is all he said to me. He's like, just read all the way to the end, okay? And I'm just like, Dad's like, he's great, but he's a man of, like, little words, you know. And so it was like, okay, well, all right, yeah, okay, I'll read to the end, and it is important. That advice now, when I look back, is important, because if you just read a little bit, you know, you read from the beginning and all the way to the end, things make sense that didn't at the beginning, and all this sort of stuff. So, so then when I got to the end, I was like, I remember sort of thinking, like, wow, like, is this me? Is this my path? Is this for me? Like, because it really resonated with me. And, you know, and I just kind of instantly already knew, like, of course it was, like, it felt like, and so I thought, this just made a lot of sense, and this is what I want to step into. Like, it just felt like, you know, in the past, and that now I realize, like, everything, you know, the happiness, or the, you know, your feeling of purpose, it doesn't come from outside. It really comes from within. And so this book just, you know, got me to go in and work on my heart, instead of, like, all these other things that they just don't last forever. Like, you know, this is the thing that is like, you know, you've got for the long run. So, you know, you were saying before earlier about how, you know, the practice, you know, makes you feel, or makes you, you know, become a good person. Like, this made me become a really authentic person compared to how I was living before, but I just didn't even realize, so until, and then life became so much simpler, because like, and I just, I felt like things were clearer, just more purposeful. They weren't as complicated, as things kind of were. I feel like I was sort of chasing a career will make me have my identity and feel like, and in the end, it's like, no, it's actually your character. People are going to remember you if you were kind to them, probably, or like sacrifice something to really like connect and help them. Not if you achieved a great thing in some job, like. So
true.
kind of, that's and it wasn't. So I found it through the book first before I then found where they practiced the meditation exercises in a big group in the park in Melbourne, and it's such a beautiful park there, Fitzroy Gardens. So then obviously, well, my father practiced, so he's like, you should just join the group in Melbourne and connect with them and that, because I also had a lot of questions once I started reading. It's just, it really opens your mind and opens your heart, and so that's how I came across it. And then I just went to the practice site in Fitzroy Gardens and started going there weekly, and then met everyone else. That's probably how I met you around Melbourne. And
that's right. That's right. Actually, everyone with Jess and I got to know Jess in Melbourne. And the one thing that's amazing is the people you meet, like, are wide and as varied as the rainbow. Everything from doctors to lawyers to gardeners like Louis and I. Actually, Jess, what do you do? What is your career? What were you doing at that time when you attained the FAR? Like, what is it? What do you do?
Yeah, I was studying. Well, in London, I was working in a photo agent, and I was doing the sort of agenting and the producing and photo shoots and advertising. So we had photographers, and we would get them work and organise the photo shoots. And then in Melbourne, I went to the Victorian College of the Arts, studied filmmaking, and focused on directing. Then after that, sort of moved into it's like starting from the bottom again, because it was like a career change. But it was good because I just started practicing, and it was like, it's good to like really just like go humble again. You know what I mean? And start from and like really realize, so I was doing third assistant directing on Neighbours, and then now in my life I've do little bits of freelance filmmaking and stuff, but mostly like my this is probably the hardest most challenging but most rewarding job is I'm a mother of 2 children. Parenting is like so I've got a boy who's 6 and a girl who's 2, and like it is like nothing else. It's like the practice really helps because, oh my goodness, like like you I don't know if the experience is like as challenging for everyone, but it is for me, and it's so great for growth and everything. And like the 3 principles of Falun Dafa: truth, compassion, forbearance. So forbearance is like patience, right? And so it's the Zhan Shan Ren. Ren is the forbearance, the patience, and that's being a parent. Like that is like really what the focus is for me. What I'm learning like all the time. It just grows your heart because it's like children. Like they are like what works for one child doesn't work for the other. Parenthood, you think you've got it, like, great. You work it out, and you're like. And then you use it on the other one, it doesn't work on the other one. It's a different character.
Absolutely. And they're always pushing your buttons. It's like our kids are always pushing our buttons. They will push every anger button, frustration button, all of these buttons all the time for us to really sort of go, oh, wow, okay, I've really got to work on that part there.
They're the biggest mirrors. They are the biggest mirrors reflecting for you. Like, yeah, you think you can cultivate and just go along, and then you have children, you're like, there's an even brighter mirror shining right there, you know. So it's like they are showing you something for you, and, you know, you can work that out and let go of that. You can help them. But they're so great like that. Yeah, it's
You were mentioning through childbirth as well, even through
harder.
childbirth. You were mentioning before that through childbirth, because what I notice is, you know, childbirth easily one of the most amazing experiences for a woman, but can also be the most terrifying in so many ways. But you were mentioning that your practice really helped you to just stand up in that as a woman and really just be calm and placid and, you know, really, can you describe that to us?
Yeah, so so you never know what to expect when you're about to, you know, like childbirth, you know, and it's not really how it is on TV, by the way. But you know, I asked my I asked my cousin who has, you know, 3 children, and I said, oh, so, you know, I was pregnant, and I was like, okay, so what's it like to give birth? And she's like, stingrays. It's like a million stingrays. I was like, that you know what a million stingrays is like. But anyway, so that was okay. So, um, but you know, yeah, I did my research before giving birth and that sort of thing, and I was like, okay, because then after birth, it's like, you know, breastfeeding and everything, and so I was like, oh, you know, I really want to try and have a natural birth, like, you know, because it's good for the other side and the recovery and the connection with the child afterwards, and the connection, you know, new healing and everything. So, you know, yeah, I was pretty much like, I'm going to try, but obviously I'm just going to try. I don't know what I'm capable of. And if not, like, I'm, you know, yeah, I'll get the painkillers or whatever I need. But, you know, I was sharing with Michael yesterday how you know, when we do the sitting down meditation, the 5th exercise, like, it's not always peaceful, you know, it's not always comfortable, but you know, you do get to that place, you know, and I think it's through that, the forbearance, the endurance, the REM, you know. So often when I was doing yeah, you know, well, every day I was doing 5th exercise, and you just kind of commit your mind to it, and you might be, you know, your legs might be a bit uncomfortable, but you just try, like, you know. And it's even in our teachings, and these are in my words, it's like, you know, talks about being, when it's hard to endure, you try, and if it's impossible, you know, you can do it, and kind of, you know, to just give it a try, like, these my words, but that's sort of the gist of what I remember from it, you know, our teaching. And it's just so positive, and it just opens up the possibility. And it's like, you know, so I was like, when I had my son, you know, my water broke before I was in labor, and so I went to the hospital, and they're like, well, that's okay. You just have to, like, if you start having contractions within the next 24 hours, we'll just, like, you know, be doing the birth as normal. But if you don't, we'll induce you. And so what inducing is, because I don't know if Louis knows this. I don't want to go here. We're preparing you for the future, Louis. And anyway,
I've gone through this, Louis.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
being in a car for hours. But anyway, it's good though. Like, you get something good at the end. And anyway, like, so being induced is sort of like, it's you know, you get they sort of, I guess, inject you with something to start the labor. And because your body isn't naturally starting the labor, your body isn't producing those hormones that help with the pain. That the body's amazing when you know, you find out what it does when it kicks off naturally. It's got all these things built in that it does. So it just means that it's really difficult to have, like, a birth, because, like, without any sort of something to help with the pain, because it's more painful basically, and you don't even know what to compare it with, like, you know. So
Yeah,
you're going in.
that's right.
When I was, you know, I was like, okay, thinking, all right, so I might need to be induced if you know, it doesn't kick in. And I was like speaking to, you know, my son I didn't know it was my son yet, but I was like, all right, so come on, now's your moment to shine. Let's work together here, and, like, you know, let's start. And then, it didn't happen. And so I was like, okay, I've got to let go of my expectation of how I thought it would be. Like, and I've just got to trust that, like, whatever's happening, I can face and I can handle because this is the way it's meant to be, right? And anyway, so got induced in that sort of thing. And I thought, I'm just going to give it a go. Like, like in those I'm just going to give it a go, basically. I don't know, but I'll try. And so, it was, it was like, of course, it was really painful and everything, but it was just so, like, I even closed my mum tells everyone, she's like, oh, Jessica was meditating. It's like, I wasn't meditating while I was giving birth. But she's like, but your eyes were closed. I'm like, well, that's probably from meditating, knowing that, that's how I deal with pain. I've dealt with pain when I've sat down and just endured the uncomfortable legs, so it's like, okay,
yes.
Here and, anyway, that's just how it happened. And anyway, yeah. So in the end, I didn't need any painkiller. I just, I think because of that thought as well, like, just give it a go, like, and it was like, but both births, like, I've got a daughter now, and that was really fast, actually. Both were like, just really special and really, like nothing else, and it really prepares you, because it's like, it's sort of like a sacrifice. It's the first bit of sacrifice for the child, and it's like the rest of your life you're sort of sacrificing, and they're helping you give up. It's so funny, I kind of, the more I go along in life, the more I sort of realize, like, wow, I think I was really selfish for so long when I was younger, and then each time I sort of get a bit older, I'm like, oh, even then I think I was probably, so I guess you just keep improving. Good. Like, it's all part of the journey. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh no, that's fantastic. Louis, did you have a question for Jess?
Yeah, I just had some thoughts. Yeah, just what you're sharing is like our society often teaches us to, like, avoid pain or look outside. But the fact that the practice of Falun Dafa helped you, like, face that pain, and you found that growth within through that experience is, like, really special. And yeah, something you said earlier about when you first obtained the far, and you're looking outside to the world, like, for that validation, or that not a validation, but that fulfillment. And our whole society's like that. Like, everywhere we look is all this external things that glimmering in our eyes everywhere. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to emphasize, like, that why a lot of people find this practice so fulfilling is that it's the fulfillment's not from external. It's like this path that's in ourself, this self-cultivation that they talk about. So yeah, I just thought that was a really good example of that. Yeah,
That's interesting you should say that, because one thing that I hear a lot, and Jess, you've just done it again, and I mean, we'll have so many more interviews because there's so many practitioners around the world. But one thing I hear so often is, and the same thing happened with me, is when I'm so sorry about this background noise. Sorry, guys, give me 2 seconds. We've got like every hoon here must be out today in their doof cars. One thing that really came to mind when Jess was talking was, and for everyone watching, there is just something amazing, genuinely beautiful about the way Teacher Li Hongzhi, who's the founder of this practice, this enormous, enormous practice of the Buddhist school, the way he takes what we've always known in our lifetimes as the most profound things in our world, all these deep, 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 deep spiritual things, and he takes them And you can almost feel him explaining them in so many ways from so many beautiful natural angles to really help us understand the rationality of these amazingly profound, deep things, the rationality of them. Because I think that's a word you mentioned before, Jess. It all seemed just so rational, so this and that. And that's something that I've really, especially in these years now, these latest years, I guess I've really only just started to feel the preciousness of, which is what, this teacher Lee has done is brought all of these incredibly profound things that most of us grew up thinking, well, this is only for monks, for sure. This is only if you literally shave your head, put on a robe, go out and spend the rest of your life in a monastery. But actually brought all of this wisdom and genuine, what Jess was mentioning, Jin Shan Ren, which is truth, compassion, and forbearance, which are the three guidance or guiding principles of Falun Dafa, brought all of this energy and power and given it to absolutely everyone in the world. Like there's people in Brazil and Africa and, all over Asia and Switzerland and Croatia and everywhere, Ukraine. Actually, just the other day, guys, there was a video that came out. Actually, Louis, we have to put it up for everyone on our, what's it called, compilations or whatever.
Collections, yeah.
Our other little bit where we store all the great stuff for you guys. Of these Falun Dafa practitioners in the Ukraine. Like in the Ukraine, hello, what are they going through? And they're out there in the snow making a video of themselves, doing these gorgeous exercises. And one thing that I've seen so often when I look at all these different videos and things from around the world that, I've been part of, Jess has been part of, making or producing or being in, or all three, and Louis has been part of, is everyone just take a good look at the people who are in this video. There's so much genuine nobility, comfortable in their own skin, genuine happiness, all of the things that actually, that's exactly what we want in life. Both Louis and Jess are mentioning, we have our careers, we have our relationships, we have our nightclubs, our drinking and whatever else that we go through to find this fulfillment in life. But it can never do the job of genuinely bringing an inner joy that is just unquenchable. And this is one of the things that I see in all these videos. Each of these people are holding this genuine joy. And it didn't come just from us. I can tell you that for nothing. Any Falun Dafa practitioner will say, like Jess has just said, we went from this, and Jess was exactly the same as me, never searching, never even needed to. I was quite happy with my life, as like Jess was saying. But then as we start to practice, this tide that we cultivate within ourselves and the energy that is Falun Dafa allow us to become something that is so simple on the outside, but it's difficult. You have to actually practice. You have to actually work on your heart. But as we do, that's when you feel these tides of the practice itself's energy. It's difficult to explain, to be honest, and I guess we'd all explain it in different ways, but therein lies that connection. And one of the main things, like Jess has just said, is life is full of tribulations, absolutely full of it. If you have kids, it's every day, at least 5 times a day. If you're a young man like Louis, guaranteed he won't go 2 or 3 days without having some kind of different issues. But the practice itself really allows you to, go over these hurdles, and it kind of doesn't feel like much after a while. The joy in your heart, the beautiful sleep, because your mind is nice and clear. Even when you go through the toughest of things, after a while, it doesn't feel that tough going over them because of the way you handle it with this truth, compassion, and tolerance. It just transforms everything in your life. So I just wanted to quickly mention that to everyone, because meeting this lovely young lady is an experience in literally knowing what it is that we aspire to as Falun Dafa practitioners. We aspire to being good people, not only for ourselves, but for everyone, for our kids, our neighbors, our friends, people that we do know, people we don't know. This is why, like, I started doing humanitarians work pretty much straight after I started practicing, because beforehand I never thought about helping others, not to that degree. Why would I do that? My life's already complicated enough. But Dafa just opens up your heart as well. So in that way, again, there's nothing but good things to gain from your practice of Falun Dafa. Anyway, I'll hop off my soapbox. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, what you've got to say. It's yeah, and it's so true. Yeah, and like, you know, any of my friends, anyone who knows me or knows me to practice Falun Gong, you know, all this propaganda and these lies that have come out in articles, they, you know, they just don't believe it. They know you. Once you meet someone and you talk to them, and you know, and people understand how the media twists things and cherry picks things, and you know, people are cluing up on this stuff all the time. And you know, I there was this the ABC, there was like a 4 ABC show that kind of really put a like just totally twisted and kind of spun like the practice. And I had my friend from Melbourne who would work together, and he's like, hey, there's this thing on TV, go check it out. And like, you know, I had a look and I'm like, yeah, real accurate kind of, it's not really, that's not how it is, hey. And he's like, yeah, I can tell that's not how it is. Like, you know, he knew, like, you know, he watched it, but he's just like, he knew. Like, I think anyone, you know, we have to use our own mind and our own judgment, and do our own research, and like, you know, do not be manipulated. Don't be lied to. Like, you know, you really just don't take things at face value when you read them. You know, just have your own experience and make your own judgment. Like, really, that's
actually, Louis and I speak about that a fair bit, because we've been letting everyone know about this latest initiative that the Chinese government's making to try to actually do a really heavy persecution campaign to the practice all around the world, like ramp up their efforts. And one of the things you mentioned before when we were talking, I think you mentioned Louise, another practitioner that's here. And she actually said to me when I was talking to her about starting this show, she said, you'll need to be careful because the Chinese government is utilizing this AI technology to take all the good things that we put on and rework them with AI to for us with our own mouths on videos to say what the CCP wants everyone to hear. And I said to Louise, let them do it. Like, you know, we can't stop doing good things merely because the CCP is using those new levels of technology to twist things. And exactly what you just said, Jess, and I'm so glad you said it. Everyone, you need to use your nous now. You need to use your inner knowledge. You can look at all of these things and surely you can see where things are genuine and good, and see where things
hear the truth. Like, I don't think the AI thing is going to work because there is this other practitioner, right? I think her name's Natalia. She's this incredible storytelling coach, or this speech coach, or, you know, public speaking. She's like this, like, really well renowned. I don't know if you know her. I have to try to find a link, but I just watched a video the other day, her talking about when we're talking and that sort of thing, our voices, people pick up on a subconscious level whether we're telling the truth or not. They know. They just know.
Yes.
And it's all in the tone
Yes.
and the sound of our voice. So this AI thing might, on the surface, smoke and mirrors, but people are going to know. Like, you know, deep down inside, it's just, I don't think it's something to worry about. It's funny that you two are doing this, because I think, like, you know, when people ask me about try to understand Falun Gong, Falun Dafa, they're like, so what is it? Because I'm like, you know, it's meditation, like it's standing exercises, slow, gentle movements, sitting meditation, and there's a text, there's the 3 principles, and it's kind of like gardening for the soul. Like, you know, it's constantly like, you know, you're picking out the weeds, like, or whatever, or, you know, and
Hey, I'll tell you something funny.
and it's growing, and you know.
I'll tell you something funny. There was another practitioner here, and in Australia, and when he first started to practice, I think it was about maybe 2 or 3 months later, and I was actually living in his place for a little while when I was transitioning between apartments, and I remember him saying to me, "You know, Mike, I think this is a little bit like being a Jedi." He said, because in Star Wars movies, Jedi are the most noble, they are the most truthful. And because they practice a spiritual thing, this Jedi path, you know, they know that there's different abilities of the body that are unlocked and all this sort of stuff. He said, I think this is a bit like being a Jedi.
Well, you know, when people start, like, it's so special. Like, it's so special, you know. And so, yeah, I can understand that feeling. I don't know if you've heard, I think some other practitioners talking about Groundhog Day, the film, you know, the Bill Murray one from like years ago, and how, like, you know, he just keeps the same thing happens every day. He's stuck in this day, you know, and it's not until he changes his character, like, for the better, that it changes. Well, that's how it is, like, for a cultivator. You know, we will have the same stuff coming back, and that's what I love about cultivation. You know, if we have a sort of conflict, we don't look out and be like, oh goodness, look at that person, and like, oh, they're shouting or they're whatever. We're not looking out, you know. We're going like, wow, okay, what's this showing me? What's this reflecting to me? Like, where in my life am I, like, where do I need to adjust myself? Like, you know, and
Yeah.
getting the same similar kind of things happen until we actually change, like, you know, improve just a little bit, or whatever, or just really align ourselves with truth, compassion, tolerance. Like, if we can just, realize that, and kind of like let go of these things that are just negative or not serving us, and you really, like, you know, your environment transforms. It's like, it just like, you know, how the movie in the end, that's how he gets out.
So true. Yeah. And even to the point where, I was just thinking about something when you were saying that, because a lot of things talk about this, you know, you've got a lot of different things that I've heard about in my life. They talk about, they almost dance around a particular strength of a principle, like you're talking about, looking within, but they don't ever really get to the heart of the principle, the real core of why it's so important, how to practice it, what exactly is it that's tripping you up, all of these different things. But that sort of winds me back to where Li Hongzhi just absolutely penetrates the entire core of everything there is and settles it so deeply and succinctly and in such a well-rounded way, where the whole principle is made clear. I'd never, you're sort of making me rush back to when I first started reading again. I'd never had so many profound things like this explained in their entirety. And each one of them is like a flower that you just look at going, oh my goodness, that is really outstanding. And that's the kind of experience it is. And then when you start to practice it, like you said, it just changes your world, because you're changing literally from the inside, the very part that
Yeah.
perceives the world, which is right on the inside, your very character.
And
So
like,
yeah, amazing.
like, you know, you're saying, you know, still about really getting to the inside, you know, other things I'd sort of done really just didn't even scrape the surface, you know, like
That's right.
this is like, just makes sense. It's so like everything. It's like, it covers everything, you know, but it's amazing. And yeah. And anyway, yeah, so this really, like, you know, yeah, it really reaches you, who you are. And it's all about the work that you do. You know, it's in your hands. It's your responsibility, right? And I love that so much freedom, as in, you know, you don't have to give your name or join a club or whatever. It's just there's people in a park. You can find it online, meditating under a tree or whatever, and you can just rock
all
up,
free.
let anyone know. You just do it. You can come and go. It's so, you know, there's no, you know, you don't need to give any money, nothing, or, you know, you can read everything online for free. It's all up there. It's really open. It's, yeah, it's just, yeah, that sort of freedom and that kind of, I enjoy. Like, you know, and it's funny you talk about like, I think the CCP kind of trying to make a spin that people are brainwashed, you know, and just talk to my mum. She's like, Jess won't ever do anything. No matter how many times I tell her, she's not going to be brainwashed. Yeah, no, so funny. That's another parenting thing, you know, as you parent, quickly flip into this, as you parent, you kind of really realize how you are and how you are with your parents, your role modeling, you know, like,
yeah.
I'm like,
that is so true.
Doing what my mum tells me, it's like, guess who's not doing what I'm telling them? Like, you know, because they're learning that from me or whatever. But anyway, it's patience, and it's like, you know, we all make mistakes and we can learn new things, and it's all good. Like, we all help each other. You know, the family.
You
like,
bet.
is you get your biggest tests within your family, because, you know, it's not it's not easy. But I think the teaching is really, and like what Louis was saying before, like you know, like being able to face hard things and conflict really equip you with that strength and that, like, I guess that knowledge of like what to do, really, but without telling you what to do, because it's all really up to you and your own wisdom and figuring it out yourself to a certain extent. So, but it's just, you know, it's like, you know, it's broader brushstrokes, but then you got to work out the detail. And so, it is amazing, because, you know, you really start to, you know, that's how you become, like, who you become when you face difficult situations. The things that are hard, they really carve out your character. You know, there's in America, this beautiful song called Michelangelo, which talks about carving, like carving the character. I think it's Katie Mantek, but it's like, yeah, it's a lovely song, and I often think of that when I think about the cultivation, because, you know, we're through that hardship and all that, we're slowly carving out our characters, and, like, you know, and you gain more confidence the more you face things that are difficult. You start to kind of feel like, oh, I'm more capable than I thought, and like, yeah, so it's great. But, you know, you sort of it's fun.
Oh, it's magic. It's magic. And look, we've been going now for about 50 minutes, guys. It felt like 10 minutes to us, but we won't make it too long for all of you out there. Jess, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're
Thanks
so
for
welcome.
sharing.
Yeah, thanks for having the show. You guys are doing a great job. It's lovely to hear kind of everyone's different experiences and that. So yeah, thanks for having me.
No, you're more than welcome. And Louis, my good friend, we will talk soon. And Louis and I'll see you on the next episode. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a good friend of mine from New York on our next episode. So thank you, Jess, Louis. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.